I was very weird about Trump. I had a couple of things I loved, a couple of things I hated, and a lot of question marks in between, right? But when you fast forward through COVID and you saw just the folks who were like, this shit's f***ed up, and then on the other side, the folks who were like, give me my 7th vax, please. Like, give me my fourth mask so I can go onto the subway. Like, those folks, I was like, who are you? What are you doing? I know you can think. I know, like, some folks I went to college with, and I'm like, we were in the same classes together. I know you're smarter than this. I know you can think critically. And yet, as soon as you get told by, a guy in a lab coat on TV, like, you gotta take 3 of them, and then you'll be okay. Well, maybe take 4. Like, I know you're not this stupid. And then going into where we are today, right? Like, that is why I am so tired of the useful idiots. Do you feel politically homeless? Well, if you're a libertarian heading into 2024, that might just be talking about you. So who should you vote for? Chase Oliver, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, or someone else? Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
Well, hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on the Brian Nichols Show, and thank you for joining us on, of course, another fun-filled episode. I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracles studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by our phenomenal sponsor, Amp America. Folks, you don't need to go ahead and support the corporate media with your clicks, with your views. Go support the folks who are giving the news you need to know without the corporate media bias or fluff. Head to ampamerica.com. We have news articles, opinion pieces, and hey, some pretty cool podcasts and more. One more time, ampamerica.com. Also, yours truly and our phenomenal studio is sponsored by our amazing, phenomenal studio sponsor, Cardio Miracle. Now, folks, I've been using Cardio Miracle since March of 2023, and y'all have heard the I guess, testimonial. I'll preach. I'll testify here on the Brian Nichols Show. The Cardio Miracle difference, 1,000% real. So if you want to learn how Cardio Miracle can help lower your resting heart rate, lower your high blood pressure while helping improve those restless nights of sleep, and also maybe help improve that pump at the gym, stick around. We're going to talk more about Cardio Miracle later in the episode. But first, let's address the elephant in the room. 2024. A lot of us are sitting here saying, man, I feel politically homeless. We look at Kamala Harris. She's an instant non-starter unless your name is Josh Eagle, in which case you're somehow now voting for Kamala Harris, praising Kamala Harris. I don't know. Do your thing, Josh. Or maybe you looked at someone like a Donald Trump. I know I've looked at Donald Trump, and yet there's still some red flags, right? Especially going back to the COVID era. I look at what was happening during COVID, and I said, this ain't that great. And then you look at what's going on with Chase Oliver. He is the official nominee for the Libertarian Party National. And a lot of issues, especially when we talk about the COVID stuff, just not seeming to get it, right? The it. What is the it? And that is kind of what we've talked about here in the show over the past few weeks. Candidates just seeming not to understand the moment we are in as a country or as a society, frankly, as a culture. So where should you go if you are politically homeless, or maybe if you're more of a libertarian like yours truly? Who should, in fact, deserve your vote? Hey, maybe it's somebody I haven't mentioned. Is it somebody like an RFK? Despite a lot of his libertarian, I would say, negatives, he is overtly not a libertarian in a lot of areas, and maybe he's evolved. We need to discuss all this and more. And there's one state that's been out there quite literally in the middle of the country trying to answer this question and grapple with this question specifically as we're digging through libertarian principles, libertarian party politics, all that fun stuff and more. So let's discuss this in detail. Joining me here on the show from the great state of Colorado, Hannah Goodman, Libertarian Party Colorado Chair. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you on the show, Hannah. I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about the LPCO's approach to the 2024 election. I know I've had quite a few of folks here from the LPCO on the program. We've had some candidates, we've had some party leadership, some really good stuff happen out there in Colorado. But you guys have definitely gotten the attention of both libertarians and non-libertarians alike here this election cycle. So before we dig into that, do us a favor, introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience, Hannah, and Why did you find yourself saying, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and lead this ragtag group of libertarians out in the middle of Colorado?
Great, thank you. So I'm Hannah Goodman. I am the chairwoman of the Libertarian Party of Colorado. I served a term as vice chairman of the party prior to ascending to the chair. So I was elected to do very radical, bold things. And in fact, my vision statement for the party is to radically change and reshape the political landscape of Colorado through very confrontational political strategies. If you know that, then clearly everything that we've done makes perfect sense on why we act the way that we do. So the ragtag group of guys and gals that, elected me to do this job, we're chomping at the bit to radically change anything we can to gain more liberty in our lives. It's no secret that Colorado is a Democratic monopoly held state. From the local level all the way up to our courts, to our governor, to our state legislature, all of these things, we have one party rule in this state. So our thought is, how can we shake up this monopoly and make a difference for the better and regain Colorado for what it used to be and stand for?
All right, so let's dig into that a little bit, Hannah. So obviously you look at our political discourse here in 2024, things are a little heated. Folks on both sides, yes, are definitely riled up, and a lot of the folks somewhere in the messy middle, right? And I'm gonna, for today's conversation, I'm gonna lump the libertarians in that messy middle, because you have the right team, Republicans, left team, the Democrats, and then there in the middle you have your independents, you have your moderates, you have your centrists, you have your socialists, you have your libertarians, and all that, that I'd say in that messy middle is a lot of uncertainty. A lot of folks who are just looking at the problem that we see right now and saying, yes, there is a problem. We have identified a problem, but solutions, very, very different when it comes to the solutions. You have some folks who say we need more government, other folks saying we need less government. And when you look at the libertarian argument, traditionally has been less government, right? Let's get the government out of our way. Let's at the very least start to empower more states and localities to be able to start making decisions more in their realm in a federalist approach versus this top-down, unilateral, one-size-fits-all, cookie-cutter approach from the federal government, which I think, as a libertarian right here, I'm like, yes, 2 thumbs up. And then you sit back and you look at the candidates. You say, okay, who do I want to cast my vote for? I mentioned it in the intro. Trump, Harris, they both have red flags. Now, candidly, I know it's going to be one of those two elected, or rather 2 candidates that's going to win the presidency. I get that. Everybody listening to the show, they get that. We're not delusional. But then you look to say, okay, let's go to strategic voting theory. I don't want to vote for this horrible candidate, name horrible candidate here, whatever political persuasion somebody is. And they want to look to either do a protest vote or actually vote based on their values, right? So they start to take a step back beyond red team, blue team. They say, who else is out there? All right, we got greens, we got golds, we got, I don't know what other colors the other political parties are besides the greens and the libertarians. So you got green, gold, and a slew of, I guess, the LGBTQ rainbow, all that in between, all those different colors, including the pinks and the light blues. Maybe not. But let's go ahead and then talk about that, right? So the LP of CO, you guys have a chance to bring a different candidate to your voting base. I think the knee-jerk instinctual reaction from somebody outside of libertarian circles is to say, oh, well, the Libertarian Party of Colorado probably is supporting the libertarian candidate, but that doesn't seem to be the case. So talk to me about what's going on there. Why is the LPCO not, I guess, rah behind a Libertarian Party candidate? And by the way, I asked that question. I got my issues with the LP candidate. I want to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, so, Colorado's just not really inclined to take such a middle-of-the-road, broadly libertarian campaign. And I use that term as a direct quote from that campaign. And we're just not satisfied with upholding the status quo of basic progressivism with maybe a small libertarian flair. To me, I think that's what broadly libertarian stands for. We really want to stand on principle here. And everyone has said, oh, you're not standing on principle, when in fact we absolutely are. The principle is we are not aligning ourselves with somebody that shills for the regime, that says, oh, well, but you should have a choice, but I myself am going to just cave to the regime. And I actually think you should too, but that should be a choice. You know, it's such a farce. It's such a mirage. It's not real. It's an illusion. You either are against the regime or you're not. And as libertarians, we are deeply against the regime. We all know our enemy is the state, right? So if that is our premise, how can we accept a candidate that's saying, oh, well, but I shill for this regime and I don't think I should force you to shill for it, but you should accept me and my view, and I should be the face of what you're doing. That's not the face of what we're doing. That's not the face of what we can achieve. And it's certainly not radical, nor is it principled.
Well, and really quick here, I'm going to share this window if StreamYard allows me. All right, we're just going to go ahead and hopefully it works. There we go. I ruffled some feathers back last month, beginning of this month. Time's a son of a gun. But I'm right there with you. I made a tweet. Sorry, I'll move that out of the way. I made a tweet. Libertarians have an obligation to question authority, not blindly follow it. When the government said you need to wear a mask instead of asking why, Chase asked how many, disqualifying. Now, I'm obviously being a little simplistic in my analysis here, but and before I get that picture right there is Photoshop. Yes, I know it's Photoshop. It doesn't take away from the overarching message, and I don't need to use a Photoshop photo to make the point and just go and find 300 pictures of Chase proudly wearing his mask while touting some type of LGBTQAI plus question mark stuff. That's just the reality. That's the candidate that we have right now. And that's not this. And by the way, this is the part I have to take a step back. I have nothing against Chase for being gay. I've had this question raised a million times. You don't like him because he's gay. I don't give a shit about him being gay or not. I really don't. Like, I'm talking about the understanding of the moment we are in as a society right now. Like, we are not in this, this middle ground. And like, I hate picking on people who've been on the show, but like Hannah Cox tweeted something. We're recording here today, Hannah Goodman, the day after the Olympic opening ceremony, and talking about like, oh, maybe if Christians focus more on, starts listing off all these different issues. And I'm like, then maybe people will take them seriously instead of mocking them during the Olympic ceremony. I'm like, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can say this is insulting, this is like rude and crass, while at the same point in time being able to promote those other things. This isn't just one of those situations where it's just like, let's go towards the ism. Let's always just revert back to the ism. We have to understand the moment we're living in. So I say all that, Hannah, like, where do you view, I guess, the Chase candidacy to really drop the ball? Like the COVID thing for me, and close behind that is the issue of LGBTQ going towards the kids, right? Like those two issues for me were incredibly, red flags, disqualifying, if I dare say, when it comes to Chase. Is that kind of where the LPCO is, or am I missing something? Is there something else that you guys have talked about? Hit me with it.
No, I definitely think that we're in agreement on that. And like, let's talk about the Olympic opening ceremony. Yeah. What is the regime currently pushing? That tells you everything that you need to know. This is a globalist agenda, right? I feel like, gosh, Alex Jones saying that. Right? But it is. So your pop culture dictates what the regime wants your programming to be. What is the current hottest thing in pop culture right now?
Hey, folks, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has truly changed my life, and that is Cardio Miracle, our incredible studio sponsor. Now, I'll be honest, when I first heard about Cardio Miracle and their claims about improving heart health, I was skeptical. But after using it for just about 2 months, I was absolutely blown away by the results. First, my blood pressure went from being consistently around 140/90 to a much more healthier and manageable 120/80. And my resting heart rate dropped from the low 70s to the high 50s. And I couldn't believe it. But The benefits didn't stop there. I started sleeping better, and I felt more energized at the gym, and my heart felt the best it's felt in years. And it's not just me. Hundreds of you, our amazing listeners, have reached out to share your own incredible experiences with Cardio Miracle. So, what is Cardio Miracle, and how does it work? It's a carefully crafted supplement that harnesses the power of nitric oxide to support optimal heart function. So, by increasing nitric oxide levels in your blood, Cardio Miracle helps relax your blood vessels, improve circulation, and it protects your heart from damage. It's like giving your heart the support it needs to function at its best. And here's the best part. We've got an exclusive offer just for you, our loyal listeners here at the Brian Nichols Show. When you head over to cardiomiracle.com and use code TBNS at checkout, you'll get an extra 15% discount on your order. Plus, with their 100% money-back guarantee, you've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. So, if you're ready to take control of your heart health and experience the life-changing benefits of Cardio Miracle for yourself, just click the link in the show notes or video description. Trust me, your heart will thank you. And don't wait another day to prioritize your health. Join the tens of thousands of folks who have already discovered the Cardio Miracle difference. Head to cardiomiracle.com now and use code TBNS for 15% off your order. Your journey to a happier and healthier heart starts today. And now, let's get back to the show.
Everyone knows it's the transgender issue, right? Transgenderism has massively exploded. It's massively exploded the most in the youth populations because this is regime programming, right? That is what pop culture does, which is why I remove myself from it absolutely as far as I can. My kids do have more exposure to like pop culture than I do and than I like, but I'm also not afraid to challenge how I've raised them against other opposing ideas. So some exposure is good. I just prefer not to be exposed to it. But the underlying theme of that opening ceremony was throwing this so blatantly in our face, saying this is what's socially acceptable, and if you fight against this, you know, you're nothing. And I don't even know, some people say yes, it's attacking Christianity, but actually I just think it's attacking common decency. And if that makes it Christian, sure, I guess. But I think common decency is fully lost. And so, you know, the COVID issue, many of our people, not me, I live very rurally. COVID was not very hard out here. It was maybe like a 90-day thing, maybe. Okay. And then after that, like we stopped doing a lot of things because we can. Because what, somebody's going to come 3 hours from the city? I don't think so. We're heavily armed out here. We're probably more armed than the Front Range. So like no one's going to come tell us. But people like the rest of my board who live in the cities and things like that, they were having to meet with their families for Thanksgiving, risking jail time because they had large groups of people, right? We saw so many, and Colorado was hit really hard with lockdowns. I understand Georgia wasn't. But okay, but if you're representing the entire nation, represent that whole picture instead of one small little state, right? That's the goal of being a presidential candidate, lest we forget the actual role of that and the proper use of it. So, you know, for the board, it's like we fought. One of my former secretary had to take a vaccine in order to keep his job, and he was fundamentally opposed to it. He could not get an exemption, right? I myself fought for healthcare workers and teachers and other people who were under the mandates, both federally and from our state governor. I fought my county commissioners to declare Phillips County a sanctuary county, and they wouldn't because they wanted the COVID stimulus funds, right? So they sold us out for money. And they made all of these people receive this vaccine they were very opposed to, right? This is the tyranny that we're talking about. There wasn't a choice there. Good for you. You chose. Good for you. Okay. But it wasn't a choice for so many people, and their lives are completely messed up. I had a guy, he received an injection to keep his job, and his heart was completely ruined, and he had to have open heart surgery to fix that off of one vaccine, right? Oh, but you know, we can choose to get it. Sure. No, he couldn't choose to get it. And so now he's maimed for the rest of his life. Where is his justice though? And then we have the issue we brought to them. We think that chemical castrations and puberty blockers are a NAP violation.
Here, here.
You can't get a tattoo under the age of 18 because it's so permanent. I would be more inclined to change the law on that versus something that's going to cause bodily harm and irrevocable damage. Every pharmaceutical you take has a risk with it. You are playing Russian roulette, and it's like we could compare it to a lot of people, and it's a crime in most states to female circumcision, right? But suddenly now we can do all of these other things. There's so many like variables, and nothing is really fully aligning. It's just, and here in Colorado, the schools on the Front Range, and even here where I am, there's issues, but the schools in the Front Range, they do a lot of things against parents' will or even knowledge, right? Most parents don't even have a knowledge of the things the schools are doing to their children in the name of transgenderism. And if people don't know that, they should probably look up all of the progressive things that are taking over Colorado public schools. The schools can ship out kids to get abortions without telling their parents. They can get them on hormone therapy without telling their parents. They can change their identity within the schools in their files, and the parents don't know. Here in Colorado, when your child hits 12, you no longer have access to their medical records, right? 12-year-olds, right? Parent rights are being violated, and we really need to sit down and go, okay, what's abuse? Because I understand that the Chase campaigns is saying, well, it should be between a parent and a doctor. But what they're really saying is it should be between a parent, a doctor, and the corporations that are pushing this agenda, i.e. the regime, right? But should you be able to do things like female circumcision? Is that between you and your doctor? Oh, no. Suddenly it's not? Okay, well, so what's the line of abuse? What's abuse? And I say that permanently harming or altering a child's body is abuse. I'm sorry, it is. It's not like.
And by the way, Hannah, I don't mean to interrupt, but this is the exact line of questioning that Chase got peppered with. I think it was like a week after the nomination was secured. He was on the Just Asking Questions podcast with Zach Weissmiller and Liz Wolfe. And Liz asked that exact question. And Chase kept on chasing, no pun intended, back to the right answer, right? The right libertarian answer. Well, that's a choice between the parents and the kid's doctor. And then Liz asked that great follow-up question. Well, what's stopping the doctor and the parents from deciding that the kid needs his arm cut off or his leg cut off or female genital circumcision or mutilation and circumcision? Like, these are all things that all of a sudden you start to say, okay, well, what about this? And does this still stand true? And it's like, no, maybe
the slavery. There might,
right. Yeah, it's a choice between the slave and the master, of course.
So children do have rights, and they're limited in their expression of that until such a time as they grow into it. So it's this shift, right? So essentially they have rights, like they have the right to have their parents who birth them take care of them, right? And as they grow and mature, it's like a waxing and a waning. So the parental rights over that child decline while there's, incline, while they receive more and more of those benefits of being able to express their full rights. I just think back to when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think back to when I was 15. I was a mother by the time I was 17. And I think about how far I've changed and grown as a person, and even from 18, right? So by the time I was 20, I had 2 children. And that's so young. I look back now and I'm like, no wonder my family freaked out. I just remember being like, okay, it's my life. Leave me alone. Yeah. But I've changed so much. Like, my husband met me with a big, bald, shaved head. And look at me now. Do I resemble that at all? No. I'm so thankful that I was able to express myself. My family was always really big on being able to express myself in an artistic manner. And I'm really thankful for that, because I was able to express. I think expression is really, really important. But there is a line between expressing yourself and how you want the world to view you, and experimenting with what that looks like in your place in society, and physically altering your body from 12,
Mm-hmm.
12-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 17-year-old. Like, physically altering, you're not going to be in the same place at 12 as you are at 32. I promise. Right? Like 36, I'm like, wow, looking back at everything I've done in life. Right? And we all do that. And so I think it's really important to protect children from harming themselves. That is the right of the parents, to protect your child from harming themselves, if at all possible. And I do not, I mean, as a libertarian, should kids experiment with their expression of themselves in society? Yes, absolutely. To a point, right? And try these ideas out on for a while. But man, you have to have really bad philosophy before you could evolve to really good philosophy. You never start at good philosophy, right? You never start with really great ideas. You always end up there through a lot of trial and error. And so to just limit somebody, no, this is what you thought at 12, so this is what you're going to think at 99, is asinine. First of all, like, it's impossible. And we should allow our children to experiment with whatever what we consider bad philosophy they want, so long as they're not harming themselves or others. Right? And what is harm?
There it is.
And I would say harm is physically altering yourself irrevocably. It's why we also don't allow children to consume things like alcohol, or in like my state, we can have mushrooms or cannabis at 21. There's a reason why there's an age limit there. I don't necessarily agree that the government's the best arbiter of that, but I understand the mentality and the rationale behind it. I have a 10-year-old and I have an 18-year-old and I have kids in between. A conversation we have a lot is about drugs and alcohol, and why I'm against them using that and experimenting with that from a young age, because it will alter your mind permanently. I have a theory. I'm an addict. I lived in a women's shelter for 1.5 years, and I received therapy for that. And I've met a lot of people. I was in group therapy sessions with actual hookers from the street. Like, I was homeless at this time. And every woman that I met, or any person I met, like in AA or NA, the most hardcore junkies, the most hardcore alcoholics, all started with use from very, very young ages. And they're essentially unable to really get out of that. Mm-hmm. So what we consume, what we intake into our body while it's forming, is really, really important. I think a lot of people don't think about that. Oh yeah, we'll just take a drug. But what does that actually do to you? I mean, and I think about it. I'm initially a vaccine activist before I'm anything. None of my children are vaccinated except my oldest, who is vaccine damaged. And all of those, what is the impact of all of that? What is the impact of 72 vaccinations on somebody's organism as it's developing? Well, I mean, there's a lot of things, but we won't have to go into that. But you see, whatever you're exposed to, it alters you. And so how can you help your children develop to the people that they are meant to be, and then allow them to experiment as they progress into being able to fully express their rights?
So 2 things. First of all, your timing on this conversation is impeccable, because on our Wednesday episode coming up this week, we're going to have a special episode of Brian's Briefings, where I'm digging into this literal conversation about children's rights and in a libertarian society. So, folks, if you want to hear my very detailed perspective, make sure you tuned in and listen to Brian's briefing next episode. But number 2, I just want to go back to something you said, Hannah, and I want to raise this up to my follow-up question. And that is the idea that we need to have bad ideas first in order to figure out what doesn't work, and then what works, and then bring good ideas. I told the story many a time here on the show back, 2004 through 2008, 9. I was a little neocon, right? I was waving that flag. I was saying, rah, rah, go America, go blow up the Mideast, make it a parking lot. Like, that was the narrative. We were all fed hook, line, and sinker, right? And I was able to say, okay, maybe that's not a good idea. Now I'm older, and I'm able to look back and have more, retrospection. And I'm saying, yeah, that silly old Brian, silly little old Brian. And then I look to where you guys are as the LPCO. And I'm wondering if there's a little bit of a similar type of progression, because you guys, I'm not sure the exact, the exact outcomes of this, but it seems you have either full-throatedly throwing your support behind RFK Jr. or somewhere therein, and I'll let you cover that in a second. But here's the beginning of this question with all my little commentaries, that you look at RFK Jr., he's had quite a few bad ideas. Climate change, thinking that folks who disagree with the idea of anthropogenic man-made climate change, that maybe they should be tossed into jail because they're dangerous. They're dangerous human beings. Gun control. He's been very, very very open to promoting more ideas of gun control. Though this election cycle has taken definitely a step back from that claim. Abortion. I mean, up until just a few months ago, saying I think up till the time that a baby should be born, a woman should have the right to choose. Now, he's definitely come back on that and waffled on that. Now, just those three issues for me, I'm like, RFK, my man, I support you with your getting the moment we're in when it comes to COVID and it comes to the government reaction to COVID. I see you as somebody who actually can engage in a conversation about these issues, not Donald Trump, who's just going to bloviate about God knows what and read a teleprompter and hopefully get the crowd excited, or Kamala Harris, who's going to go and talk about undoing and the burden of what could been and cackling at something, right? Like RFK can actually have a legitimate policy conversation. I like that, but I'm also candidly a little scared shitless because RFK's smart. He's a lawyer. He's spent a lot of time, energy, and effort in this world of vaccine adjudications, and he's going through talking about helping improve the environment and using the existing laws that were put forth by these large entities like the EPA, the DEC up where I'm from in New York, the Department of Environmental Conservation. I actually heard a podcast episode. He was going into very deep detail about working with the DEC to tackle some of these issues. So I see someone like an RFK, and here's where I'll turn my question. I get it. I get the appeal. I've had the urge to dig a little bit more myself into RFK, namely because I'm in a very, 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 very red state, and I know that my state's going to go to Donald Trump. So do I want to cast my vote for somebody who, at the very least, is going to upset the apple cart a little bit? I look at RFK. I get it. I want to cast the vote. But all those past negatives, Hannah. So make the case to me. We're talking about sales and marketing here in the show. I'm a libertarian, small L, granted, though I have rah, the big L for certain candidates here and there. But talk to me about where the argument for RFK Jr. is. I mean, we got Chase on the ballot. He is a big L libertarian, and despite the areas I absolutely disagree with him, just like there's areas I absolutely disagree with RFK, at least Chase self-identifies as one of us. So what is the difference between Chase and RFK? And help make that sales pitch for me.
Well, first of all, I would say broadly libertarian positions would signify probably a small L libertarian. Also, he sold me on he was a blue dog Democrat, but I would say he's a progressive Democrat. I know. I was raised by blue dog Democrats, and I'm surrounded by them in my family.
Well, what does that look like? What would you differentiate the blue dog versus progressive? I'm just curious.
That has a lot to do with workers and that type of a thing. So blue dog Democrats are pro 2A, pretty hard and fast. They believe in minimal regulation. I would say they're not constitutionalists, but they do believe in some regulation, but for the most part, pretty strong on the 2A. They're really big on workers, unions, protecting workers' rights, standing up to cronyism, standing up to the regime that controls a lot of the economic trade. They over time have evolved to become the cronies themselves, right? Isn't that interesting? The blue dog Democrats of today are not the blue dog Democrats of my grandfather's day. I'll just put it that way. So they're really big on America First trade policy positions, which you're not necessarily seeing from progressives these days. These types of things. I've never heard any of those talking points, with the exception of the gun rights from Chase. And he's super anti-war, which we really like. So there's not to say there's nothing we like about Chase. We just think that he shills really hard for the regime, which we are so fundamentally opposed because that is what rules this country, not political parties. So that would also segue me into why RFK. And I would say, broadly speaking, RFK really understands the regime. He understands when the regime took over. He understands why the regime took over. And he definitely understands the ramifications of the regime taking over the United States in the late 60s.
Yeah, just ask his dad and his uncle. But I
That's
digress.
that's exactly it. Now, has he been a perfect candidate? No. Where is this perfect candidate? Have we ever?
I want to meet them. Can you introduce them to me, please, Hannah? I would love to meet that perfect candidate.
Maybe someday it'll be me. I don't know. Right? So we're not necessarily looking for perfection. We're looking for what's going to radically change and reshape Colorado, what's going to radically and boldly push liberty and advance it across the political landscape, whether that's Colorado or nationally, and what is the best fit for fighting that regime. And that's right there is fit by RFK. When we initially passed the resolution to not put Chase on the ballot, we said we're going to be exploring our options. And we did. And we were approached by the RFK team as soon as that happened, and we got into negotiations. Well, I don't know negotiations, but at least trying to figure out, do we align, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we drafted the Liberty Pledge. Everyone, for the most part, knows we have a Liberty Pledge here in Colorado for Republican candidates to sign in hopes that a Libertarian will not run against them. And that's been a pretty effective strategy. We're going to really see more as this election cycle progresses because it's the first election cycle with this. So with that, we're not fully there in seeing the ramifications of what that's done politically, but we crafted a pledge for a presidential campaign, and RFK signed it. And from that moment forward, all of the things he signed, you can see him moving closer to where we want him to be. And the first four of those were war. They were all related to war because Colorado is very anti-war. I'm a mother of 4 children, 3 of which are boys. They could be drafted, right? I don't want any of my children to die in foreign wars ever. And so war is a huge issue, and we've seen him become progressively better on that specific issue. So I'm thrilled with that. We are not seeing him push for gun restrictions at this point. On there, it says, I will abolish and veto all unconstitutional gun laws that come through. People say that's pretty vague. I don't know. I feel like the Constitution is pretty clear. It doesn't say 50 pages. They're right, because it just says one line, right? The right of the Second Amendment shall not be infringed. Pretty simple.
Pretty black and white, yeah.
Yes, and his campaign manager, so she had a really interesting story. She was in Miramar for a political revolution for freedom fighters that were able to take over, I think, in 2012, but they lost power in 2021, and a lot of them were mass executed. She talks about women and children being forced to cross landmines and soldiers taking bets on who's going to explode first. Meanwhile, these freedom fighters have been pushed into the jungle and they're 3D printing guns in order to fight to take their country back. She's like, if anyone understands why the Second Amendment was put there, I definitely do. And I definitely understand it's not for hunting. It is for protecting our rights, especially from an overreaching government. So he's surrounded by people like that. And the one thing I really like is that he's able to evolve. Some people would say, oh, is he pandering? Well, I guess anyone could pander at any time. I guess maybe I'm pandering from my viewpoints that I had when I was 12. I don't know. Or is it evolving, right? I think having conversations and at least having somebody who understands the regime and then understands perhaps maybe the viewpoint I had was in alignment with the regime, I definitely need to look at that and reassess where I'm at. But you can't have these conversations if they're never brought up to the person, right? You can never change. If you never know, you have to change or should change or why you should change. And so I think it's a really interesting opportunity for a small party like the Libertarian Party, whose main goal is not to run candidates, right? It's activism and to push the needle for liberty. That's our purpose. And if that's our purpose, why wouldn't we use this to push liberty in any way that we can through as many big channels bigger than ourselves as we can, you know? And so I think that's really the case for RFK, is that he's become better, he's becoming better, and he really understands this moment in history and who's controlling what and why we should fight against that.
So let's go back to the elephant in the room we talked about earlier. Trump, Kamala, it's going to be one of those two, right? Like we pretty much, I think, as a country, we know it's going to be either Trump or Kamala. So with that being said, what does victory look like with RFK from the LP of Colorado's perspective? And by that question, I mean, are you looking at RFK as someone to help get more votes? Are you looking at RFK as someone who's going to help spread the message? Which, by the way, this has literally been the conversation for the Libertarian Party for like whatever. What's the role? Get votes or get the message out? Okay, let's have that conversation. But I guess in terms of this specific use case, at the very least, in a federalist mindset, right, we can actually make this a case study, figure out, is this working or is it not? So what are you going to look to, Hannah, as outcomes to figure out whether or not the support behind RFK is successful? Is it votes? Is it the message? And by the way, if it is the message, I would love to know, have you seen RFK taking more of a libertarian message to the masses, specifically there in Colorado, since he's gotten the backing?
So I would say that we could have both, right? We should focus a little bit on both votes and the message. And how do we combine those to push and advance liberty? Because I think instead of isolating them and separating, what if we just didn't do that? What if we focused on both? So here in Colorado, our main goal is to shake up our landscape here. Prior to Biden dropping out, RFK was polling higher than Biden here. Haha. I'm knocking on the Democrats' door. I've been single-handedly dismantling the Republican Party in Colorado. You should see it. You should see the state it's in. It's in utter chaos, right? And there is a reason for that, and that would be the Libertarian Party advancing ourselves into the political landscape and essentially crumbling what's left of the GOP of Colorado, because there isn't much. And you're witnessing the complete collapse today, right now. And if you don't know what's going on with the Colorado GOP, anybody that wants to look it up, you're welcome to. So now we're taking this threat and this force, and we're knocking on the Democratic door. We initially tried to work with them too. They just ignored us, and I bet now they wish to God they hadn't. That's generally how it goes, though. People, when they ignore me, generally regret doing so. So with that, we're looking to really shake up the Democratic Party here, because we have the largest voting base in Colorado is the independent voting base. And there's a big percentage of that is a swing vote. And combined with my swing vote, it's quite a powerful thing. So we're looking at completely shaking up all of the votes in Colorado. And we believe the most effective way to do that is to put RFK on our ballot and swing that stick around and start hitting people with it. Because everybody likes to think the Democratic Party of Colorado is completely aligned, but they're not. They're not. I have a lot of inside sources. I got a lot of sources in a lot of places. And it's fun because this is real politics, right? I'm not focused internally in the party. I don't care about those political structures because none of those people are going to set me free because they're worried about inside the party. Me, I'm worried about, hey man, I can't afford groceries. Hey man, allocations on gas and diesel for my family's business that my husband works for are completely out of whack and no one's making money and we're starving. So how do we break out of this? And that is to shake up the political landscape here through voting. So that's my number one goal, is to challenge the Democratic establishment here and get as many independent voters and target them as we can. Because those independent voters potentially could become libertarian voters. I don't mean libertarian members. Everyone wants to say the purpose of we should increase our membership by blah, blah, blah. That's stupid. You never start with your membership. You always start with your supporters. You get a huge base of supporters, and from those supporters, you pull members. That's how it works. And if anyone tells you any different, they don't know what they're doing. So by
the way, really quick, I don't mean to interrupt your train of thought, but like that actually makes me think back to a story. I remember back when I think it was the first iPhone was coming out or something therein, and there was this like huge line at the iPhone store, and the news team was there, and they're like walking through, interviewing people, like, you in line for the next new iPhone? You so excited? And they get to somebody later in the line, and they're like, what are you excited for being in line today? They're like, I don't know. And they're like, what do you mean? Like, you're in line? You're like, I saw the line form and I just thought it must be something cool. And they're like, do you know what this line's for? And they're like, I have no idea. They're like, this line's for the new iPhone. They're like, oh, the new iPhone. Okay, it's cool. But there's this herd mentality. You see You see the crowd, like they're all congregating in this line. Must be something good. Something good's going on here. Same mental thing carries over with political parties. Like, I'm not going to go sign up to be a member of a party until all of a sudden I see the line. Like, I see the line going down Broad Street, and I'm like, oh, something's going on here. Why are all these people excited? Why are they in line? And that right there speaks to, like, you got to get people to say, ooh, what's that? Pique their interest. Their interest. And libertarians have been like, we're like, okay, I can do that. I'm going to throw this book at you. I'm going to hit you over the head with a book. It's like, books don't work to get people interested. Books work to get them to understand the why, but that's not the thing that gets them caught. So I didn't mean to interrupt your train of thought there, Hannah, but that is exactly where libertarians have lost the plot. We think if we just throw enough books at people, that's going to work. There's a reason my books sit behind me, all right, behind the sanitation wipes, like, because they don't matter. I mean, yes, they matter. Books matter. But in terms of getting people on board with a new way of thinking, that's not going to sell them. That does nothing. That is more or less like, that's the logic, the reasoning in the back end. Like in sales, we talk about there's two ways people make buying decisions. First is the emotional trigger. So you need to have an emotional trigger that makes somebody say, yes, I'm going to make this buying decision. It's instinctual, it's knee-jerk, and usually the two most powerful emotions are what? Fear and love. So you can either make them afraid and they want to make a decision, or you make them love whatever the choice is and they make that choice. Then that's where the book comes in handy, because now you have to be able to help them when they go back to their friends, they go back to their family. If you're in the world of business, they go back to their boss and they say, I just bought this brand new thing. And the boss is like, all right, what is it? And they're like, it is X, Y, and Z. It's going to make our lives so much better here. And then what's the next question that boss is inevitably going to ask, Hannah? How?
Yeah.
How is it going to do this, right? And that's where you need to have the book. That's where you need to be able to tell the story and validate, like, oh, yeah, my emotion saying we needed to do this because I loved this was because of, right here, X, Y, and Z. And then you tell that story. It's not the book, though, that tells the story. It's the outcome that the thing that you're talking about, whether it's an ism, whether it's a candidate, it's the thing, it's whatever the outcome is that matters. And then being able to tell that story afterwards. So didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to quickly add that little sales nuance.
Think about this, right? So with that same nuance, if you put an L, like put RFK as an L at the top of the presidential ballot, how many more votes are you going to get down ballot for libertarians?
Right.
All these people, we need to get real libertarians elected. Cool. Well, help me get real libertarians elected. Does anybody have any bright ideas? Because I've been around and I'm super smart and I've been trying to figure this out because I want to be an elected libertarian myself. That's the whole end game, right? Not elected in the party, because that means less than nothing. It's just a spot on my resume. I want to know how I can be elected to the governor of Colorado as a libertarian in 30 years. I believe that we could start by RFK president. I'm a congressional candidate this year. How nice would that be for my independent voting block in Congressional District 4 to come in hot? RFK independent, well, a libertarian, but everyone views him as independent. They're going to start looking at everyone else down ballot on that ticket, and it makes them more relevant to vote for, right? Without that, we're going to just see the same numbers that we always see, which is, yeah. Oh, wow. But we got our principles or something, I guess. Or something.
We got 6 votes. They were all from me and my friends and my LP leadership, but we got 6 votes, guys. And guess what? They were the purest votes ever.
And we're gonna do that. Did so much for liberty. We're so free now, as they like march us into a train car.
I mean, yes. It's just it's exhausting. It's disappointing. But it's not shocking, Hannah. And that is unfortunately where I'm at. And by the way, like, folks, you've heard my I guess metamorphosis. I'll use that word as a libertarian. I came into this world back in like 2008, the crack in the armor came in. Like, I was like, I don't think I'm a neocon anymore. Even though I went to college and I was still rah, Mr. GOP. I was my GOP president for my college Republicans 2 years in a row. Like, we went to CPAC. We did all those cool things. And like, still, there was something whenever I was like, Mitt Romney, why not Ron Paul? Like, that was internalized into me, right? And when I started really digging into libertarianism, right, beyond the names, and started thinking about like the philosophy, I found myself unintentionally, and by the way, this goes to what we talked about earlier, Hannah, unintentionally shilling for the regime, right? I was so against Trump. I was like, who the fuck is this guy coming in, like just bull in a china shop, just completely pissing on the political process that I went to college for political science. I've been in the world of politics literally my whole life, family of elected officials. Like, I've been in this world. And to see someone just come in, bull in a china shop, destroying the thing I thought I was supposed to support, it was really weird for me. Yeah. And then when he became president, I was like, oh shit, like what's happening? And seeing my friends freaking the fuck out. They're like, oh my God, Trump's gonna be the next fascist, he's Hitler. Like just completely losing their shit. And granted, at this time I was living in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So obviously like the context was, it's the beginning of the end, apocalypse now. And then you fast forward like 3 years into his presidency. And I went from being like, who is this bloviating bastard to, he's not terrible. He's doing some stuff that I think a libertarian would do. Like, he's trying to bring us out of all these foreign intervention. He's trying to make NATO pay for themselves instead of us being the one to pay for them. He's making the UN actually stand up and do some stuff versus us just paying them to exist. And then what happened? COVID happened. And Trump, I don't want to say he reverted. I don't think that's the case. I think it was more so, it was, to quote Michael Scott, it was threat level midnight. And all of a sudden, everybody from the woodwork comes out. All the cockroaches, right? You have the Deborah Birx. You have the Anthony Fauci's. You got the head of the CDC, Rochelle Walensky. All these names start from the incestuous bureaucracy start to come out. We're the experts. You got to trust us. And candidly, I think Trump was kind of in that mindset. He's like, I'm not a fucking immunologist. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm not an epidemiologist. Like, let these guys talk about this stuff. Like, I'm a guy who built some buildings in New York City and I hosted The Apprentice. Like, I'm not in this world of medical science. And I think that's where he really lost the plot for a lot of libertarians, myself included, by the way. I was very, very upset with Operation Warp Speed. Yeah. Just saying, hey, no issues whatsoever if your experimental vaccine hurts people, or hey, no issues whatsoever, government. Like, we're just gonna remove all liability from you for incentivizing this. Like, what? That's backwards. I will give credit where credit's due, though. He did bring forth this federalist mindset, even though he, on the other side of his mouth, was yelling at places like Florida, like Georgia, for opening up too early. So I say all that. I was very weird about Trump. I had a couple of things I loved, a couple of things I hated, and a lot of question marks in between, right? But when you fast forward through COVID and you saw just the folks who were like, this shit's fucked up. And then on the other side, the folks who were like, give me my 7th vax, please. Like, give me my fourth mask so I can go onto the subway. Like, those folks, I was like, who are you? What are you doing? Like, I know you can think. I know, like, some folks I went to college with, and I'm like, we were in the same classes together. I know you're smarter than this. I know you can think critically. And yet, as soon as you get told by, a guy in a lab coat on TV, like, you got to take 3 of them and then you'll be okay. Well, maybe take 4. Like, I know you're not this stupid. And then going into where we are today, right? Like, that is why I am so tired of the useful idiots, right? I'm tired of the folks who, it's not the folks like me who were unintentionally echoing back the narratives like I was with Trump back in the day, but rather the folks who, they know that's bullshit and yet continue to do it. And I teased his name earlier, but like, he's been on the show and he's more than welcome to come on the show and he wants to defend himself. But like Josh Eagle, he has been one of the biggest gaslighting people in our liberty movement I have seen to date. Going from rah Justin Amash, rah libertarian candidates to supporting Joe Biden and now saying, I am proudly voting for Kamala Harris. That must be a really nice paycheck, buddy. I good for you. Like, you must be set. Because like, to see that type of person, I'm like, no. not only are you not being truthful, you're not just not being a useful idiot. You're being, in this case, like purposely malicious. You're gaslighting. You're trying to talk out one side of your mouth while behind the scenes, or in some cases, just blatantly open, doing and saying another thing. So that's where I'm at, Hannah. I look to what you guys are doing. I know you've gotten a lot of slings and arrows over the past few months with all the insanity taking place, but like, this is, I think, why your I guess the laser is so focused. The microscope, there we go, is so focused on Colorado, because you guys are doing things differently. It's one of the reasons I've been working a lot with you guys, doing trainings and doing talks and stuff, because I see you guys approaching things in a different way. You're meeting your ideal voter persona, as you mentioned, the independents, not people who are overtly card-carrying libertarians already, because guess what? They're already on our side, and if not, they're probably going to vote for Trump. Let's just be real. You're going after folks who are like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of somewhere in the middle right now. I don't know which way I want to go. Make the case to me. And that's the person that I want to talk to. I want to be able to make the sales pitch to them, show them the different way of doing things. And like, listen, it doesn't have to be the ism that we're leading with. It's not the, well, we need to have you first buy into libertarianism. That's just a consequence of them seeing things differently. Yeah. Like, we can get them there, but we need to get them at first to say, can you tell me more about that? We need to pique their interest. We can't just going in and throwing the book at them doesn't work. So I say all that, Hannah. My metamorphosis as a libertarian, I think, very much echoes what you're seeing right now in Colorado in terms of your approach, because on the but here, I'll end my little soapbox speech here. And this is my final thoughts, by the way, so I'll turn things over to you and let you bring us home. But like, this is why I am so tired of the old way of doing things, right? This is why I have made my show since 2018, 2019. We have made a hard approach to teaching libertarians how to sell liberty. And what do we have to do here? You know what? Just because I have it already pulled up, we do this.
Focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about.
You meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Doesn't matter how right we think we are, or shit, how right we know we are. Like, we know our ideas work. We'll win in the battle place of ideas. Doesn't matter, though, how good your product is if folks aren't buying it. And you have to get them interested in buying your product. I'm in the world of sales and marketing for my day job. I have the best contact center solution that any company can buy in the SMB. Doesn't matter how great my solution is if I can't get them to say, ooh, tell me more. So I say all that, Hannah, we have to, as libertarians, get out of our own way. Sometimes get the ism out of the way. Don't let that slow us down, and actually ask ourselves the very difficult, but dare I say, very easy to answer question here. And that is, what are we trying to accomplish? What is our goal? Once we set that goal in place, then it's a matter of reverse engineering in terms of how we get there. And I'm just going to say it. I think what you guys are doing in Colorado is different, but I think different can work. So that's my final thoughts. I'm going to take a couple steps back here off of my soapbox. Hannah, bring us home. Final thoughts for today's episodes. If you want to wrap things up in a nice, neat bow, call to actions for the audience, all that in between, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And that's exactly what we're seeking to do here in Colorado. Many people may not know our board is a director model, so we are not an officers model. With that, we are actually operating the Libertarian Party of Colorado like a startup company. So we're doing a mixture of Scrum style meetings every week and a practice called an L10 traction meeting. So we're identifying and solving problems, and we're doing, the direction that we're going is to radically change and reshape the political landscape of Colorado through confrontational politics. Because we're working this way, it makes sense once you finally put the pieces together. We are selling libertarianism and liberty to the Colorado voters, and we are reverse engineering how we're doing that just by following that vision I've set as our guide. It has been so much fun coming on this show and discussing all of these things with you. And I'm so glad that you've had an open mind to at least consider our viewpoint and where we're coming from. I know that it can be really shocking and really, new, but every radical thinker does that. Some radical thinkers in history have been put to death for it.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that that radical thinker was wrong. It only just solidifies that they were right. And so I'm ready to go down with this ship regardless of way the chips fall, because I know that I'm standing on principle, and I know that what I'm doing is right for the LPCO, and I know that it is right to spread liberty to the Colorado voter. So with that, if you really like the direction that we're moving in, if you like the things that we're doing, and you want to get involved and you're in Colorado, you'll go to lpcolorado.org. You can learn all about what we're doing in Colorado at our website. There's also a place for you to become a sustaining membership. So that's $25 a year. Super cheap, super fun. You're able to participate in the party process. But you know what? If you're not in Colorado, or you're not ready to take that leap, but you really still like what we're doing, you can definitely donate on that webpage as well. So that's lpcolorado.org/donate. You want to see more of what we're doing across social media? That's at LPCO on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We are really excited for the progress that we've made here in Colorado and the dent we have made into the two-party system. It was so great being on today. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, Hannah. And here, you know what? We'll play one more clip. And actually, I know you saw this because you retweeted it. This is my thoughts. And this is to libertarians out there who they're very proud of the fact that they are one of 6 folks who voted for libertarians out of the 6 folks in their LP county leadership. And to them, I say this.
Have been so frustrated with libertarians' inability to get out of their own way. I'm tired of it. Do you want help or not? Do you want to know how to sell these ideas and grow beyond your little group of weirdos who want to talk about politics instead of actually doing politics? Fine. I'm done then. I'm not going to play this stupid game if that's all it is to you. It's a stupid little game. It makes you feel good. Great. Congratulations. You have I'm a secretary at my local county LP. Who the fuck cares? No one. Nobody cares in the greater political arena that you held a secretary position for your local LP county.
Yeah, I had some thoughts. So I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap things up today with that. Hannah, I have truly enjoyed today's conversation. I hope this gives some insight to folks who are curious about what's going on in the great state of Colorado as it pertains to our libertarian brothers and sisters out there. I really appreciate you painting a picture in terms of why RFK versus the LP nominee. I hope I painted a picture in terms of why I am not on board with the LP nominee beyond the other episodes I've done in the past, but also why I'm still kind of a big question mark. Maybe RFK, I don't know. We'll see. I'm still kind of up in the air. So, hey, by the way, folks out there, if you're trying to get me to vote one way or another, make your sales pitch. I want to hear about it and use some of the resources and tools and tactics and strategies we taught here on the Brian Nichols Show. Head down below into the comments. Let us know your thoughts. Am I completely off base? Is Hannah completely off base? Or are we somewhere in between? Heck, maybe you're on board with us. We want to hear about it. Head down below. Please let us know your thoughts. YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is you're catching the today's episode of the Brian Nichols Show. Just, of course, try to be respectful. Let's not use any profanities and such. I've used enough of them on today's show. Other than that, you can find yours truly at B Nichols Liberty, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram as well. For the audio version of the show, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, wherever it is you consume your favorite podcast, just go ahead, search for the Brian Nichols Show and hit subscribe. And then as for how you can support the show, well, please support our phenomenal sponsors like Amp America, Cardio Miracle, our amazing friends over at Blood of Tyrants. They have their liquid freedom energy tea. Stop poisoning your body with like the energy drinks that have 30 different ingredients. Liquid Freedom Energy Tea, they got like 7. So go ahead, check them out. And anywhere you go ahead and purchase from our sponsors, just make sure you use code TBNS at checkout. You're going to get a special discount applied there at checkout. $5 off here, 20% off here, all that and more. So with that being said, we have had a great conversation. Peek behind the curtain. We're recording here on Saturday, so that's why we went a little bit longer. And folks, I really appreciate you, the amazing audience here, the Brian Nichols Show, sticking with us as we're going through a little bit of a change. Yes, we went from just our 3 episodes a week of interview to we're mixing things up. We're doing our interviews on Mondays now. So this episode with Hannah is going to be airing on Monday morning. Monday afternoon, evening, 6:30 p.m. My apologies. And then on our Wednesday episodes, we have our episodes of Brian's Briefing. So quick, short, and to the point, 10 minutes ballpark or less. And this week I'm talking about children and how they have rights in the libertarian society. And then on our Friday episodes, we have our Week in Review episodes with our good buddy Remzo Martinez. So, folks, a little bit different here at the show, but I'm hearing some great feedback. So I want to hear your feedback as well. If you like the different way we're doing the show, the format, email me. Or heck, if you don't like it, I also want to hear. So email me, Brian at briannicholsshow.com. Also, if you want to get your questions answered on a Brian's Briefing, email me your questions at briannicholsshow.com as well. All right, I'm going to shut up now. Hannah Goodman, thanks for joining us. With that being said, Brian Nichols signing off here on The Brian Nichols Show. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.